If you grew up in India in the 1990s or the 2000s, you remember the drill. The exact moment the summer heat peaked, the fan stopped, the lights went out, the inverter beeped. Endless power cuts had become a feature of Indian society, dragging down daily life and industrial output.
जनरेटर के भरोसे ठहरा आने वाला कल बत्ती गुल है मीटर चालू रोक न लग जाए बल.
But today, in the scorching summer of 2026, something unprecedented is happening. Every day. As the Ministry of Power just confirmed, for 4 consecutive days, India's peak power demand shattered all-time historical records. On 21st May, power demand hit a staggering 270.82 gigawatts. Factories are pumping out goods, data centers are consuming massive wattage, and millions of ACs are running simultaneously to beat the heat waves. And yet, the grid has not collapsed. Look at this chart. Back in 2007, India was suffering from a terrifying 16.6% power deficit, meaning that the country could not meet close to a fifth of its total power demand. The grid simply could not support country's ambition. But look at the end of the graph. From 2024 right up to April 2026, the deficit line hit a flat 0.00%. We are witnessing the rise of the Indian power. Doubling the power demand of 1.4 billion people while completely raising the deficit requires massive structural engineering. Today, we audit the Indian power sector. Welcome to the Indian Matrix. To understand how we won this battle, you have to look at the raw numbers. In 2010, India's peak demand was around 122 gigawatts, but the grid could only supply 110 gigawatts. That 12 gigawatt gap is the reason your neighborhood went dark. Fast forward to May 2026, India's peak demand exploded to a staggering 270.82 gigawatts. But this time, the grid supplied exactly 270.82 gigawatts. The deficit was zero. How did we bridge the gap? We went on an infrastructure building spree. Between 2014 and 2025, India added over 218 gigawatt of new generation capacity. We literally built a second India's worth of power plants in just 10 years. Generation is only the first step. Delivering that power across the subcontinent requires a massive transmission overhaul. Before 2014, India didn't have a truly unified grid. The South couldn't easily borrow power from the North. The government spent over 9.15 lakh crore rupees on the National Electricity Plan, laying thousands of kilometers of new transmission lines. We created one nation, one grid, one frequency. Today, if a solar park in Rajasthan generates excess power, it can seamlessly run a factory in Tamil Nadu. The bottleneck was destroyed. Western media frequently portrays India as a primary climate offender dependent on coal.
Their dependence on coal.
Can India go green when so many of its people are simply struggling to survive?
The actual deployment data contradicts this entirely. India is actually executing the fastest green energy transition in the world.
हमारा विस्तार ले रहा एनर्जी सेक्टर भारत में इन्वेस्टमेंट और कोलैबोरेशन के नए अवसर बना रहा है.
As of 2025, our installed renewable energy capacity, including large hydro, crossed a massive 220 gigawatts. We hit our Paris Agreement target of 40% non-fossil fuel capacity 9 years ahead of schedule. We need a reality check on these capacity numbers. Installed capacity does not equal 24/7 generation. The government officially noted that our 270 gigawatt record was met during solar hours. Solar output peaks during the day but reduces after 6 pm as the sun goes down. Wind generation fluctuates with the weather. Meanwhile, factories, cooling systems, and data centers require constant, unwavering wattage. You need what engineers call baseload power. Power that is available 24/7, 365 days a year, regardless of the weather. And right now, the only way to guarantee that baseload in India is thermal power and increasingly nuclear power. There is a lot of pressure on India from the West to completely shut down our coal plants.
Indian regulators have temporarily shut down several coal-fired power plants around the capital, Delhi.
This is where we need to call out the West's hypocrisy. The United States, the UK, and Europe used cheap, dirty coal for 150 years to build their wealth, their infrastructure, and their middle class. Now that they are rich, they want developing nations like India to stop using the exact same fuel that made them wealthy. The government has made a ruthless, pragmatic choice. We will build our solar and wind faster than anyone else, but we will absolutely not sacrifice our economic growth to satisfy West-imposed guilt. Thermal power will remain the spine of the Indian grid until battery storage tech becomes cheap enough to replace it. Energy security is national security. So, we have the power plants and we have the transmission lines. But there was a third problem, the DISCOMs. DISCOMs are the electricity distribution companies that buy electricity from producers and sell it to you. For decades, they were bleeding money. Why? Because of ATCs, aggregate technical and commercial losses, which is a polite bureaucratic term for power theft and unpaid bills. In 2013 to 2014, ATC losses were over 22%. That means for every 100 units of electricity the DISCOM bought, they only got paid for 78. You cannot run a business losing 22% of your product to theft. The government stepped in with the Revamped Distribution Sector Scheme (RDSS), pumping in 3 lakh crore rupees. The financial bailout came with strict conditions, forcing states into mandatory adoption of smart meters. With smart meters, human billing errors vanished. Power theft became incredibly difficult because of AI algorithms, as they could instantly spot where the electricity was leaking. The result? ATC losses dropped to around 15% by 2023 to 2024. Furthermore, the government introduced strict late payment surcharge rules. They basically told the state DISCOMs, if you don't pay the power generation companies on time, you will be blocked from buying electricity on the open market. Financial discipline was strictly implemented. The bleeding stopped. When you put it all together, massive capacity addition, a unified national grid, a pragmatic mix of green and thermal energy, and ruthless financial discipline, you get the graph we started with, the 0% deficit. For decades, the lack of electricity was biggest speed breaker on India's highway to growth. Today, that speed breaker has been paved over. The Indian state proved that it can execute complex, multi-decade infrastructure projects at scale. The transition from a power deficit nation to an energy secure republic provides the necessary foundation for a $5 trillion economy. If you want to see the real math behind this transition, share this video and check out our deep dive articles on the Indian Matrix Substack.